best to be fair and balanced because we have to go to the plus, we have to go to those minuses because it will help our people understand. So I like what you say, it's true. I didn't, for me, maybe Dr. Richardson will comment on this one. Did I use a gender issue in this speech? Talk to me, Dr. Richardson. I want to fill you in onto the conversation.
Yes, like Alex, I was very busy today, but I got a chance to read and take some notes. I did not hear anything about setting or fast tracking all of the issues relating to sexual and gender-based violence at the courthouse. I know they did establish a separate court for that, but not. I didn't hear anything about strengthening the court system to manage sexual and gender-based violence. I also was happy that he included the diaspora group, but I really was looking for him to talk about leveraging all of the support in terms of monetary support. The return of the diaspora would be another economic boost for our economy. I also was looking at, again, I think along with Alex in terms of the anti-corruption. There was a disparity between what he said we are left and what we are said. So what is he doing about it specifically was what I wanted to hear about. I heard him talk about changing the Ministry of Internal Affairs to the Ministry of Local Affairs. I wanted to see specifically what what's the difference between those two. And I also wanted to hear that he's not going to create new bodies because he already talked about how bloated the civil servant is, but just maybe like transferring those people into a separate body. The same thing he said with the Ministry of Information and Tourism. I like that he said he's going to create a national tourism authority or something like agency or something like, which is great. We need that. I was disappointed, honestly, about how he discussed the drug issue. He recognized that it is a problem in our society, but he said that he and his vice president were willing to take a drug test. I'm sure they're going to pass a drug test. What I need is to hear the police authority, the teachers, okay, people who are in the security business. There should be a law that asks them to at least take a drug test. Those who are first responder to some of our drug issues, because we can't be using drugs and be working with people who are, suffering from substance abuse. I think that affects your clarity and also your ability to model those people.
Thank you, Dr. Richardson, for a very long time since CDC put a ban on the people from coming on Spoon Talk. We have not seen any of the sedition, the reaction in the person of Isaac Doe. Welcome, Isaac Doe. It's good to have you since 2023, around January or so. You left us. But it's good to have you back, Isaac Doe, as always. Let's hear you up. What's your takeaway? What was missing from this speech? And you can do your intro as well.
Well, thank you. CEO, I hope
You good.
You hear me?
You good. You good.
Okay, thank you so much. And let me say hi to everyone. As a partner of Spoon Talk, it's a pleasure being back on here to ensure we help the country. And I know you said initially that Isaac Doe opposition. That's what I want to start from right there. I don't consider myself as an opposition because I've had one pledge to myself and to the country and to the incoming government that I personally will not be a part of anything that will tend to destabilize the country. I won't be part of anything that will tend to undermine the government's success. I won't be part of anything that will tend to make the government to be the failure. I will want the government to be successful because the success of this government is the success of the country. But I know one thing for a fact, that I will be part of everything that will ensure the government delivers on its promises to the people. As a person, I've always known that in our country, we have had voice, and voice. I'm sure we need to graduate now from the aspect of voice to actions. And that's why we'll ensure that we help the government in delivering to the people of this country. But on the basis of the government coming to power, again, we are not here to be like opposition criticizing everything. There have been some good, some bad, but generally, personally, I have not been impressed so far with the very first early days of the government. Who want to go back starting from the issue of, I know you guys have talked about it before, but since I've just come in, just want to check into that very quickly. The issue that had to do with the $10 million donation to the fire victims in Bone County. I know you spoke about it very intensively, but as a person, I will be sure that I want to know who are those hands that will be having influence over our national government. That's what I thought it was important, not to criticize the gesture, but to have an understanding of the source of that money, who have been something great that has not been done, and I feel disappointed in that. Or leaving that also coming to the issue of the inauguration, where we all know the program was not as we expected. It was, I would say, a flop. And of course, we managed to know up to today that some $1.2 million was spent on the entire inauguration episode, starting from the $200 given to the transitional team to the $365,000 given across the county, plus the $650,000 given by the governor of Liberia. And someone who want to be sure, have an idea of actually what went wrong, even leaving there, coming to the appointment of people in government, we thought it's been very slow than imagined. It was my personal thinking that the United Party being considered as the most educated party, who have been ready to get things getting on the first day of taking office. Up to this time, we've had almost nothing. So I've not been so much impressed with what has been happening so far. On the speech specifically to today, I think the president mentioned one or two things that I want to say, thanks to him for. He talked about having 10,000 young people benefiting from some digital training. I would have loved to get specifics of exactly what those would be. Is it just teaching people in sending emails from here and there, or something that will actually impact their lives? But in addition to that, I did not really hear specifics across the board. I only heard the problems that we know Liberians have, but we weren't interested in bringing on people who would come to tell us about Liberia's problem. I think we were all very interested in hearing people who will come to bring solutions for the problems that we know. But today it was repetition of the problems we had, and I hope we can do better.
Thank you very much, Isaac. Though again, we will respect our 2 minutes because a lot of folks want to join us. I want us to dive into the speech, and as it is true, you all senior will discuss some of the issue, but use your time as you see fit, and we will give you the chance to speak out on those issues. Let's welcome Ambula Mame. Ambula, welcome to the show. The Sona today, delivered by the president, Jose Yema Bwakai. Your takeaway, the first question on the table, what was the negative part of this Sona? What you didn't hear the president say?
I mean, I expected the president to announce a couple of things that I did not hear him announce. I expected him to have officially today announced his intention to legalize and establish the office of the First Lady. Usually, in politics in Africa and other places, the office of the First Lady has always been a source of bribe and influence peddling. And the way to control that is to have it legally established, giving the authority and power to raise resources anywhere around the world in a humanitarian initiative, and to be able to use those resources to address problems, but to also report to the legislature every year on who donated to the office of the First Lady and what the resources were used for. In the absence of establishing that office legally and making it accountable to report on donors and who providing funding, there's high possibilities, there's a likelihood that the office, not necessarily the office of Ente Katumu Bwakai, but the records and historical references show that when these legal safeguards are not put in place, that office have always been used as a source of bribe and influence peddling. We saw it with George Weah, we saw it with other presidents, we saw it with presidents across other countries, and there's a huge literature on how to curtail that. The US and other countries have put in place that mechanism by legally establishing the office, giving it the authority to raise resources anywhere through donations and other means, charity funding, but to also report on who providing those funding and what those fundings are being used for. That he did not do it today. I hope he can do it sooner than later, so that we begin to see a new administration will begin to feel that Joe Bwaka President Bwaka is ready to move all over. That would be a very quick win for him, but I didn't see it today. But generally, I mean, I was impressed, and we can go into the details. That was just one thing that was missing that I hope, I mean, he can come back on. George,
Thank
you
you
are
very
using
much.
that office to exploit the country. I think you need to correct it.
But instead, then let me ask you a question before we move to Duadu. We will understand that under President George Manawia, the past president, Claudia was receiving certain amount of money. It was quietly established. Don't you think it just rolled over?
No. So what happened is Claudia received funding. At least the last time I checked in the budget, I saw it once. Now, my point is there is no legal framework on how that office should function, who it should report to, the limits on where it can raise money from, and how it can report. Who takes ownership of initiative after the tenure of an existing president ends? Claudia is claiming authority and ownership of most of the things she did, but she acquired those resources using the state asset. That name office of the first lady is an asset of the state that she used to raise money. And every project she implemented should be a state asset. But because there is no legal framework to guard that transition and that process, it makes it problematic. And I hope that President Bwaka will correct that going forward.
Noted. Thank you very much. Duadu. Now let's get, you know what? Mama is making a great point. We're going to go Duadu, Alex, Sam, Dr. Richardson will bring Isaac in. Duadu, the question remained. You said this speech was on point. You said it was good, but we have one of those bullet points that folks out there, good people created, and we'll be going to them. First of all, full implementation of the local government Act of 2018. Okay, through the utilization of the county service centers and revenue sharing between local and central government. Is the president, because he didn't go into detail, let me just be very exact. Went away with the internal affairs ministry. Can you help us understand what you understood from that speech today about local government?
I think the intention is tension is actually to get rid of the internal affairs ministry. I don't know if this camera is.
You're good. We can hear you. You're good.
But that should be the intention to get rid of that, because one thing is, and I love that portion of the speech though, because if we localize government, we can get more to the people locally. Because if the president appoints a superintendent or he appoints a mayor in Grangeda County or in Barclayville, they don't become answerable to the people of Barclayville. They become beholden to the president up in Morovia. And it takes away from service provision in this location. So I think getting rid of the internal affairs ministry, but he's not getting rid of them. He's just trying to miniaturize them to the local locations. And I think that's what we should be targeting, because we have to take government to the people. If you remember the past administration that my brother Asido was a part of, every single person in the government DFI President Weah, because they felt they were beholden to President Weah. And Honorable Bwaka understands this, President Bwaka understands this. In order to get services to the people, you must localize the way government works. And I think that's what he's intending to do. He's not getting rid of the agency, but he's localizing the agency as it should be.
So again, the second point, because we got to go, it's a lot of bullet point. Training of 10,000 youth in the first half of 2024 with digital skill. Let me ask you the second question. Your thought, do you think it's a possibility? Something that ASIDO ministry ran on, but we beat them. So it will be very important to hear from ASIDO on this. But let me hear you first as we go through the line. Welcome to the show, Al Hussein. It's good to see you. Go ahead, Mr. Duadu. 10,000 youth training.
You got to repeat yourself. You're kind of breaking in aggressively. Yeah, it's breaking in. So
I don't know what they're doing. Okay, 10,000. Let me just put it up. I'll just put it up, and you can just speak on it. Yeah. All right. It will help us a lot while I just upload this. I'm so sorry. The internet in the studio giving you guys some wild way. While I pull it up, let me go to Alex, who is hearing me. Alex, for implementation of the local government 2018 Act, I did doing away with the internal ministry, and the second issue is that establishment of local government, but let add also training of 10,000 youth in the first half of 2024. Talk to us while we upload these things, Alex.
Yeah, I think that is a commendable thing to move to the local government situation. That's it was before they changed it to the Ministry of Internal Affairs. So the intention, as I see it, is to help the decentralization of the country, right? Which is a good thing, because even according to the speech, right now, even the county service centers are not, being funded because there are confusion in the laws in the PFM Act versus the Revenue Act law, which some of them centralize the funding in Monrovia as opposed to decentralizing the fund, such that when the people make the money in a county, everything comes to central government. So that act will help that. But one of the issues we face in West Africa is the fact of whether we blend some of the intention of internal affairs. Minister of Internal is to blend security, because some of the West African countries have their security in the Ministry of Internal Affairs. And as it appears now, when we go to some of these security conferences in West Africa, Liberia is now represented because the National Security Agency is at the agency level, it's not at the ministerial level. So whilst you have the Minister of Finance, Minister of Justice, and all these countries bringing in their internal affairs minister who oversees security in the country, we are kind of left out because the NSA is not. So something needs to be done in that direction. But again, it's laudable to move to the internal affairs to decentralize. On the issue of the training of 1,000 youth, it's a good thing.
10,000.
I'm sorry, 10,000 youth is a good thing in very digital skills. But the question is, with our IT infrastructure being challenged and with jobs being missed, how will these trained people be put to work? That is the part I didn't hear. Yeah, we train them, but how do we put them to work? How do we put 10,000 youth to work? That is what I didn't hear.
But so Sam Jackson, thank you, Alex. Let's go back to this local government issue. Getting rid of, he didn't say, but getting rid of internal affairs and that of the training of 10,000 youth. You call this Zogo aspect of the speech a very beautiful one. Drugs. We can relate the drugs issue to Zogos. That's exactly what is happening. But we saw that 2022, President George Manuel King, they had a whole big program. Acid Doe and his former youth and sport minister, they were at that program wearing red. They raised 13 million dollars. That was the budget to help with this same issue. And Acid Doe came out and said, no, we raised only $3 million or something whatsoever. They don't build a youth centers. People in the country independently building youth center. I want you to talk to us about local government and this important aspect of 10,000 youth training. Do we have job for them? Where are they going to be trained? Talk to us, Sam.
Okay, look, when you ascend to power, and this is your first major speech in terms of the functionality of government, you make some broad strokes, okay? But so what I like to see, what are actionable objective of this administration, 100 days, 6 months, 1 year. And there are competing priorities, resource requirements, personnel requirement, efficiencies, and all of that. So I would like to see this administration as soon as possible. And that will determine whether the goodwill all President Boyka has now is goodwill like Ellen had in 2006, George Weah in 2018. But that goodwill will evaporate if you do not put into action plans with quantifiable objectives. So, for example, local government is part of a larger construct, which is about decentralization and providing basic services, okay, at all levels, municipality, provincial, and so on and so forth. Okay. So, like I will tell you today, Stanton, the Liberian people will be making the judgment in the next 90 days, 100 days, 6 months to a year, All of those spoken words that came out today that sounded so very laudable, with all that goodwill, if they don't see quantifiable, identifiable, objective, okay, implementation, then Mr. Boycott, like the other presidents before them, will start losing popular support. And once you start losing popular support, we're going to start seeing the inflection of instability and unpopular government. And it makes it very difficult for government to achieve its objectives if it
Time
does
frame,
not.
give the timeline because you're going broad now. How long you think this
So let
honeymoon
me
will be
just
over?
let me give you a case study which I thought was effective and most people may be able to relate to it. In 2006, when Ellen came to power, we put together something called the 150-day action plan with the 4 pillars. The 4 pillars was, okay, so the Boycott administration needs to make a determination. What are the priorities? And based upon the campaign promises and based upon the reaction of the Liberian people. So number 1, it's a drug. So if it's drug, he said he's doing something actionable. He put together this interim committee. What are the resource requirements and what are the objectives? Okay. So 10,000 IT. But all of those things are all hodgepodge. I don't see an integrated approach so far, but there may be an integrated approach. Later on, we will see a 100-day action plan, a 90-day action plan, a 6-month action plan. But so far, those are beautiful words. And if those words are not transformed,
when will the honeymoon be over? With all the good things that were said today?
The honeymoon will be over as soon as the and I'm not hoping for that. I'm praying for the success of this government. I really am. And I think every patriotic Liberian should be praying for the success of this government. But the honeymoon will be short-lived if actions are not married to words and people do not see quantifiable things that they can see.
Thank you.
Okay. So for
Are you
example,
getting 6? I know we're going to go deeper into this thing, so let me hold you there. So thank you very much, Sam. Let me bring in Hussein. Hussein, I know you just joined us, but talk to us. The first 3 line bullet point of this sonnet from today.
Well, the speech after was great. It was short. I know a lot of people were on social media talking, oh, it's not going to be long, but then the president came. He nailed it. I mean, this was one of the best performances I've seen. I think it kind of drove back from the time that we had a president that once he come on to give speech, we were wondering whether he will make error, whether he will make some gaffe. Now we are seeing responsible leadership again. You know, so he sounded presidential. He hit all those points. This is a well thought out. Look, one of the beauty of having a vice president as president is that he's been around for some time. He's seen it all. He kind of have a vision of what he wants for the country, and we saw that laid out today. So I think the president did well. For the first 2 points, I know he greeted the people. I'm seeing that camaraderie. I don't want to jump ahead of this here, but I'm seeing that real camaraderie between him and our legislators. I saw that today from the way they kind of interact with one another. If this continue, I think we're heading somewhere. That was one of the things that I noticed today. The second thing, are we just going to go to the point? I highlighted.
So yeah, I'm going to bring in the next set. Let me run with Dr. Richardson, Ambula, and Isaac, and we'll bring in the next set because somebody did a beautiful job. I don't know who did it, and they just sent it to me. Wrote all the bullet points, and we can jump into it. You listen to the speech, you read the speech. I'm not going to play all this clip because we need our time to talk. Let me go to Isaac real quick. Go ahead.
The first 3 that he said, and honestly, I've listened to some of our friends in the diplomatic people out there in the diplomatic sphere. Look, Liberia is out to something. For the first 3, 4 times we have done this election thing, and we have a smooth transfer of power. I think the president mentioned that in his speech, and I think our democracy is becoming enviable. A lot of people in the sub-region cannot boast of what we have now. If we can continue to build on this, even though we are not there yet economically, I think we are heading somewhere as far as democracy is concerned.
Thank you very much, Fadiga. As it though, I'm going to bring you in before Ambula Mame and Dr. Richardson. Your takeaway from this first 3 bullet point, as it though.
Well, thank you, CEO. I mean, I said it earlier on. I would have loved to get specifics as to how those things will be done. CEO, Liberia gained independence in 1847. We have had speeches upon voice upon talking. Those have never taken our country an inch. What we need now should be action. That's what I said. Coming to us and explaining Liberia's problems is not helping us. Let's go to the 3 points you just put on. Great. One of they said, let's start from the bottom. Establishment of Ministry of Local Government. Everyone is in a state of confusion. Are we getting rid of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, or what are we doing? Now, if we are not getting rid of Internal Affairs and trying to establish some other ministry, Mr. Boyka talked about 300 million of the national budget going to paying people that work in the government. You're going to be creating a new ministry whereby you will need to pay more people again. How are you not contradicting yourself? Looking at reducing the amount of money going to people who you are paying as a government, but then creating more ministry where you need to pay more people. And let's go to the next one, the issue of youth. 10,000 young people getting some digital training. Is that a bad thing? I would say absolutely no. It is a good thing. But can we know how will this be done? Now, to do this, you need money from the national budget. One who have expected the president to have touched on some kind of recasting of the national budget in which there will be a portion to account for this 10,000 young
I'm
people.
going to read that real quick. I beg you. I'm not interrupting you. Alex, someone talk about recasting. It's what asking right now. What do you think? You're the financial man yet. Were you thinking about recasting in this speech?
Yeah, I said, look now that I said, look now they have to revisit the budget. That's why.
What do you think it was in the speech?
That is why, in fact, it is paramount that the Senate confirmed the crop of people that have been nominated to the Ministry of Finance. The minister and his deputies need to be confirmed right away so that they can begin to look into action to even consider the difference, the 20 million versus the 40 million.
Yeah.
And based upon that, they have to take a look at the budget.
Thank you. Isaac, please go ahead. I mean, we just got to be fiery here. Finish up, Isaac.
So, and like I was saying, how are you going to get the money? Now, the good thing of the matter, I've always said, we are coming from government now. We were there. We sat on chairs. We know how these things work. Now, if you want to train people from the digital world, you and I, we agree you need a lot of things. You need computers. You need a space. Now, you're going to have 10,000 young people trained from that angle within the first quarter of 2024. We're talking about 4 months from January. CEO, our TVET policy in our country says to have the minimum standard of any such trainings, you should have at least 6 months of training. And you are first going to look for a space where you will have computers, set it up before you start enrolling 10,000 young people. Again, Liberia has had wars. I would actually hope our government being successful in a way that they are sincere to the Liberian people and not just putting words out. You cannot train no 10,000 people for 4 months in some computer thing that they will have anything to help themselves. Now, let's go to can you please put it on, just quickly hit the last one. Now, the first one talking about full implementation of the local. Well, again, I personally did not hear what's supposed to be the government's roadmap for the next year or so to count. The first speech you give as a president should tell the people what exactly of those things you will be doing. Most of the things that have been cited are things that are already being done. Let me give you a quick example. You told the issue of drugs. The president today moved to establish a committee that he said will look in the direction of drugs. Where are we heading?
We got to the drugs issue. That's sorry to interrupt you. We gotta go to Ambula Mame and Dr. Richardson because it's part of the bullet point. I want us to stick on this to enjoy the show. Ambula Mame bring you in before Dr. Richardson. These bullet points, but I want to ask you though, because listen to Isaac. I mean, he's coming strong from the other side of the eye, saying that, listen, yeah, I am. Can you create 10,000 training in the first 6 months of this year? Well, of course, we got about 4 more months left. But make your point on these three bullet points, Abdullah.
So it's not fair to the president to argue that he's recounting challenges. The purpose of the speech he delivered today was to present the state of affairs of the country. And he did that well. He said the country, what the exact word he used, he said the state of the country is in distress. And he said there is hope. The emphasis on distress, taking over from a government, that borrowed over 1.3 billion in 6 years. That is over 601% increase in debt, the highest in our country in the last 20 years. You're taking over a country with that amount of debt and only leaving a controversial 20 or 40 million in the reserve, in the consolidated account that already has claim to. So he needed to present that picture of the distress that the country found itself in. Debt distress, the highest debt accumulated in 6 years. What we have did with that money, only the audit will show. So he went further after talking about the distress to give hope. And then he talked about local government. And that's where I want to emphasize.
Okay.
There has been 2 segments of Liberia since 1847. The rural part of Liberia and the urban part of Liberia. All the resources from Liberia, whether it is gold, whether it is diamond, whether it is rubber, whether it is agriculture, come from the rural part of Liberia to the urban centers. Those resources are used to develop the urban centers while the rural places remain poor. And the consequence of that over time has been massive migration from rural to urban area and people living in shanty communities. The decentralization law now is intended to release power and authority to the rural places, to release resources to the rural places, so that the natural resources do not only come from the rural places to the urban places, so that taxes are paid there locally. Resources are managed there locally. Power is diverted from Monrovia to the rural places. That is the essence of that Local Government Act. The government is not creating a new ministry. The Ministry of Internal Affairs will be reformed. The name will change. The different structures in the ministry will change to reflect a decentralized government. So he's not creating new ministry. It's unfortunate the minister doesn't know that. He's not creating new ministry. It's the same Ministry of Internal Affairs. The mindset of the Ministry of Internal Affairs will change from that archaic thing about Sasewu towards governance and decentralization. It will now be a ministry responsible to diverse power from Monrovia to the rural places. That is the hope he was talking about. Telling the people that resources will not only leave from your county and come to Monrovia, but you get taxes on those resources. It will pay taxes to you. You have your governance structure that will manage and be accountable to you. That is the essence of enforcing that decentralization law and creating the local government ministry and putting in place that new structure that gave the people power and authority, gave them resources, and not only take resources from the rural places and bring it to the urban places. That's the hope you were talking about.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Again, this will be a very interesting show. We want to say thanks to every one of you that's sharing this program. Thanks to you as you watch us. We'll be patient here and everyone will have an opportunity to speak. We want to say this is about Liberia and the state of the nation address today. Dr. Richardson, these 3 bullet points, and we'll flip over. Let's also welcome Glennie. Thank you for joining us, Glennie. Well, Dr. Richardson, your takeaway.
I want to just start by talking about what Mommy was saying, but mostly deal instead of on the economic issues, but on the social issues. We have 2 different practices in our country. We have our traditional laws and also something that relates to the constitutional practice. And I think looking at the internal affairs created opportunity for us to kind of merge those 2 or either elaborate on our traditional laws. There's a lot of things that we do traditionally sometimes that isn't recognized constitutionally or isn't shown up in our presentation that we make, because of course we want to be connected to the European approach. So I know Mommy talked about the taxes, the economic part of it, but I think the social part of it, I think that would be a great use of such an agency. Um, you talk about it. I think like everybody else said, the 10,000 youth. Again, where are they going to go once you train them? Uh, that was something I would have loved to see in the speech. Just take it one step further. What's going to happen to them? How we're going to sustain what they learn? And then of course, I had a note here about. I didn't hear him talk about what is happening in ECOWAS, the current event that happened in ECOWAS, the dissolution of ECOWAS as we know it to be. For example, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Yesterday, we learned that they are looking forward to leaving uh, the ECOWAS committee. So those things I think would have been urgent for me to speak about. And lastly, I think about rice and gas, two important pocketbook issues in the country. There was some discrepancies in the last government about $11 million that was put in the budget for rice. um, I think it would have been really helpful to sort of do some sort of investigation on what happened with that rice shortage, and assure our people that now that you're in power, you want to make sure that the money that come in with the rice, or who the vendors are, that you're going to follow up on it, because that's an issue. And it's an issue of gas. The price of gas increased, and it was attributed to what's going on in the world. They were saying the Ukraine war. I would have liked for a little bit more specific language on that, in terms of you're going to investigate, you're going to find out, just to assure the people that these pocketbook issues will be addressed. Education, he didn't spend a lot of time. He said you're going to revitalize the education structure. So I know you want us to say to that script that you put up there. I can't remember what was up there, but I wish you would have said more about. Yes, okay. Yeah, I told you that Ministry of Local, the youth, and yes, okay, yeah, great.
All right, thank you, Dr. Richardson. We're going to move to the next one, and we're going to start with that, Glennie. With this one, go back to Alex, Dualu, and the rest of the team. But let's start with the next bullet point. It is important. Listen, everybody have our own takeaway. Uh, uh, Point of correction, real quick. Well, I'm not going to do it now. Glennie sending me something from there now, so I won't announce it. Glennie, you're not starting again, right? All right, let's start with Glennie on this first one. Glennie, though, on a serious note, for drugs and corruption, public and private sector, this is concerning. And also, he said he and his vice president going to take the drugs tax, but he didn't say whether the rest of the country, those that are working for this government, will be taking drugs tax prior to employment, like they do here in America. Can you look at these points and give us your takeaway, Glennie, please?
So I specifically, hello everybody, on set and those watching. I specifically was appreciative of the mention of the drugs, and very appreciative of the committee that he has already set up, led by the Justice Minister, the Health Minister, and I think there are a few more other persons. How they plan to do this is going to be strategic, because there's just so much drug in the country that I don't think a small committee, this has to be widespread, because you can't just only be concentrated on Monrovia. You have to be concentrated on Liberia, because it's everywhere. So I think it was a very positive thing. And one of the things, I don't mean to deviate from the pointers, but one of the things I liked about the speech was the fact that we can clearly see that the president is current with current events, things that people have been talking about. All of those issues were mentioned in the speech. I was also very okay with the fact that this was mentioned, because this should be a priority when you're declaring a state of epidemic, or these, like, emphasizing that this was serious in Liberia. I think it was important. We'll look to see how it will be implemented, what processes they will put in place, because it can't just be, it has to be from the airport. It has to be from outside of Liberia. It has to be with different contacts that we have. So we're looking forward to see how he does that. I don't remember the other pointers that was up, but this drug thing was concerning for me. Tourism was another one that she touched on. A lot of people have been talking about it, the act, talking about also what that tells you is that he's concerned about helping to build our economy, and building the economy has one of the factors that's going to contribute to that is the tourism. I like the vibe bridge thing, the road. This is something we are also going to hold him accountable for, because it's a 100-day thing that he's looking at. We want to see how far he can get within 100 days. The education and agriculture, I know this is not on here, but I think two pieces was not in depth. And I think it was just a synopsis of, I'm going to talk about this, but I'm not going to talk about it now.
He said it, revitalization of education.
Yes, what I'm saying was very minimum. Whatever
Okay.
he said was very minimum to education. It's like there's so many things wrong with the education, and it can tie in also with it. I love the fact that they're going to train 10,000 young people. Now, literally, it doesn't mean that they're going to be in classroom. They could send them to different universities, different countries, and different stuff. But I think some of the things that I expected him to really expound on was just limited in the speech for me. But overall, I think it was a good speech.
Thank you, Mr. Eduardo, and then Alex. Mr. Eduardo, the second bullet points that we just put up, your takeaway, and then will be very firing, because I know most of it would be something to lay back. I want us to get into it. Can this thing come to pass within the first 100 day or year? Talk to us, Mr. Eduardo.
I don't think anybody rationally expects these things to come to pass within the first 100 days. What we do expect is that there's a foundation being laid that can be seen by the people, that tremendous efforts have been put to bear to ensure this becomes the case in Liberia. Before I forget this, I want to mention this. When the president spoke about approximately 9% of the roads in the country are paved. I think he said we have approximately 13,000 roads across the country. Less than 9% of those are paved. This is something that we should look into, and he's committing some of the road fund to go towards the rehabilitation and expansion of some of these road networks. So for me, the speech overall, like I said, it was a well thought out speech. It tries to cover most things that are pertinent to the country right now. This is what I take from the speech. So the focus is not these basic bullet points, but how we can get those bullet points to be realized and actually affect the lives of the people in the country positively. And I think this is the task for Honorable Bwaka, President Bwaka. I have to get used to this. I always say Honorable Bwaka. But President Bwaka has a lot of work to do. We have to lay this foundation and be aggressive about it. My thing is, the people must go to work. Stanton, I'll give it to you, man.
I know you're giving it to me, Eduardo, but you're kind of too mellow. You're kind of too quiet. And I see that Isaac shaking his head. It's something concerning. We know the president, this is his first State of the Nation address, Eduardo. The president saying in the first half, we'll be able to train 10,000. Let me just hit you right here, because I'm trying, not because of President Bwaka.
Yeah.
You think those that wrote this speech, they've been so sincere that in the first half, 10,000 people will be trained?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this, Stanton. I'm not privy to the details or the consideration, what went into that calculation, but I can say this. People may think, oh, how are you going to train 10,000 people? You don't necessarily have to set up a school to do that. President Bwaka, maybe there's a strategy. Say, listen, go to the various universities and various high schools, and we can put additional money in there to focus on the tech sector. That can be done that way. That can be more than 10,000 people. So the strategy, like I think Asa mentioned this, as to the details of that, maybe we need to explain more the detail, but this is entirely doable because the systems are already being built. You can put money into the system to improve that system. The 10,000 young people can be trained. This is not a big deal. Monrovia alone has approximately, if I'm not joking here, maybe 300,000 students. So 10,000 training, 10,000 in the tech sector is not a far-fetched idea. No.
Thank you. Thank you. Alex?
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned three things there, right? Drugs, tourism, and something else.
Yeah, I'm going to put it back up.
And then
Education.
I think medical supply. All right. So this, first of all, this is great. The president made a symbolic gesture in owning up to taking drug test. He and his vice president. And that is what great leaders do. You set the tone at the top. because this drug issue is a huge problem in our country. So I was glad to hear the president and his vice president owning up to taking the drug test, and also setting up right away a committee. And this is the thing you do, and the details will come later. Yeah, we don't expect the president to say it all, because the details will be developed as we go along. But there are certain things that he's supposed to talk about, right? Because, for example, this whole drug issue has multifaceted approach. For example, how does the drug come into the country? How do you deal with that? The drugs in the country, how do you deal with the sellers of the drugs, bringing in the DEA and those people? How do you deal with rehabilitation of the people who have been affected by the drugs? And you see, so those things, but overall, I think the president did very well, scored a good mark on that. On tourism, I'm a little indifferent about, because most of the time we put the horse before the cat before the horse, if I'm right. We like putting in laws, but when it comes to enforcement, then it's a problem. We like setting up institutions, but when it comes to, we already have the situation at the Ministry of Information and Tourism. Why don't we start from there and begin to see some dividend in the tourism area? Because in my understanding, when I visit other countries, tourism is a function of more like marketing, packaging and marketing. But we set up this institution, it will be a burden on the budget, because we now need to set up the institution, we now need to hire people, we now need to hire commissioner, deputy commissioner, and this. All these people will now get salary and all these things. Why don't we start with the assistant minister of information for tourism and begin to package Cape Mount, begin to package Patafui, begin to package Grand Cru and all these places, and begin to sell them. And then once the money starts coming, then it creates the need to establish institutions. Then it creates the need to build the road. It creates the need to send the electricity there, because the demand will start coming. That will also extend to the airport, bringing more people into the country. Once more people come into the country, more airlines will want to come to our country. On the issue of the medical supply, it's a good thing. Once again, it's a great move, but we need to police that area. We have people working in the ministry with all their little drugstore and their clinics, and as a result of when we bring these medical supplies in, they go out, and the people do not benefit. That's my take on that.
So let me ask you real quick, then we can bring in Asido, Sam Jackson, Mame. Tourism. Are you also hearing that you think they want to split up the Ministry of Information, Culture, and Tourism? What are you hearing, Alex?
Yes, that's the intention, because they're creating a new bill to create a tourism institution.
And take that from under the Ministry of Information.
Take it from under the Ministry of Information altogether and create a tourism board, a tourism authority, or something like that will oversee. The same way we established the Liberia Airport Authority when we have now harnessed all the different airports into the country for them to oversee, because now the Liberia Airport Authority has become a burden on the single RIA that we have. So now we're going to create a tourism board or tourism commission when we don't have the tourism market flourishing yet.
All right, thank you very much. Let me bring in Isaac Doe, then we'll go to Ebola Mame and Sam Jackson. Isaac, your take away from this bullet point, and that's what I'm hearing also, I should just say.
Thank you. Yeah, you guys are coming in a little broken, so I'm not sure we are actually hearing you very clearly. But before I quickly go on the points that have been discussed right now, I think Mame, right, was saying something about what we were discussing previously. I didn't really get that clearly, but I heard something about some economic issue about finance, taxes, certain money lifting. I'm not sure if I really got that. If that's what he was actually talking about, Mame, maybe you did not actually see the points. Things concerning the local government were two. One is establishing the Ministry of Local Government, and the other one is, he said, full implementation of the Local Government Act. That act is the one that is the economical, and the Ministry of Local Government is different. So you want to look at it again. But let's go on the points right now that we have, if you are hearing me. Ciro, first I want to go on the tourism aspect. These are very good, bright ideas. Again, it's just broad in nature, place out there. We don't know how long that's going to take. We're going to establish a new office. I will come back again to the budgeting implication of it. How is that going to work? Well, I don't know. And, you know, I basically got all of the things he said. And again, it would be the same thing I would say over and over. I practically who want to be very much straight on those things he did not say, and that we all can agree are very important to Liberia. Now, there are few issues that took the election the way they went. Those were the bread and butter issues of our country. Those concern the issue of rice. What would the government do to address the issue of rice prices? Nothing said about it. Those concern the issue of security. What would the government do? Nothing said about it. You come to the issue of education. The president said education is not a privilege. It should be a right. We know. We knew that since 1847. So what will we do now to have that being the right issue? That's what we know. Education is right since 1847. There's not anything we are not disputing. So if you were to look at all of those things left out, it kind of make us a little confusing. Now, drugs. The president said we tackle drugs, and he said here a VP will take in drugs. I don't know drug test. If they take the test now, are they going to publish the result? What does that really mean after taking the test? What does it really? I don't know. But the president moved on to establish a committee. This is where, in my mind, I did believe that the president may not have gone through the turnover note that we gave him from the previous government. If they did that, the president will not be repeating those things that are already in existence. As we speak right now, CEO, there is such committee established that is headed by the country representative of the United Nations and the Minister of the Ministry of Youth and Sports. On Monday that passed, they had one of their meetings. Because of that committee, we were able to raise through the UN sector $3 million United States dollars that is currently in country in the accounts of UN. In addition to that, the government, as is in the budget right now, pledged to donate $1 million every year. So if the president now is going that route, one who
can we
tends to
interrupt
wonder
you for a
what
bit, Isaac?
happens to
Isaac, I know you. Isaac, let interrupt you because we understand the committee was set up by George Mann. We have that famous video. We understand all of that. But this committee that is set up now by President Jose Yuma will be headed by the Minister of Health, DEA, Gender, Justice, and he named them all. So let's just forget about the setup of the committee. Let's go to the money. Can I finish? You will finish.
No.
I beg you. I want to
this
ask you a question. I want to ask you a question, though. You will finish, please. And it's important. The $3 million is stay in question because your government at the time is the money. Zoga Wilson is on tape saying that he didn't receive a dime of that money. So we don't want to go back there. I don't want you to celebrate and say stay in the cover of the government or the UN. Because we brought Zoga on the show, we discussed it. Zoga said, "I'm at 2 hands. Alex, I didn't see any 3 million." He's on tape saying it. How can you say 3 million and stay there, Isaac? Finish up and go to Abula Mambe and say and Uncle Sam.
So CEO, that's why we've made it upon ourselves to return back on Spoon and the show. We provide the correct information. And again, like I said, words don't move our country anymore. Actions will do. Now, CEO, if you come and talk, say you're looking for money, you can't talk about money today and you get it tomorrow. The issue of getting money from partners take a little while. It's a process. So CEO, again, as I'm telling you, the 3 million I'm talking about was approved by the UN donor around August of 2023. So at the time that we launched that program, we did not get anything more than 225,000 that we got. When you were asking the minister at that time, the UN had not approved that money yet. And again, getting money is not one day thing. I understand Mr. Baika is going to do all of these things. Car will not hitch nowhere. But getting money is not 1 day, it's not 2 days. It takes process. So at the time the president launched that, that was 2 years ago. But I'm talking about process that was some 6-7 months ago. And again, let me move on to say that is there. You talk about the Minister of Health, the Ministry of Health heading that committee that the president talked about. You will want to know that the Ministry of Health heads the technical working committee on the very at-risk youth that we have right now. So it means there will be a total going around the cycle as to what we will do again. And that means we're going to be having a prolonged time in which we should be having an impactful program.
I said, that hold you there. Let hold you there. I said, let me bring in my mate. We're gonna hold you there. I say it's not saying the truth about that $3 billion. Now I've asked the guys to please find the clip when Zoka Wilson appeared on the show. Samuel Toy said he gave the money to Zoka $1 billion at the time, Abula, and Zoka came. The youth transport minister said no. Samuel Toy didn't give him any money. I don't know why I actually sit on the show talking about 25,000. The money was made available. The donor contributed, and the rest is history. Abula, come in. Let's talk about this thing. It's very important, Abula. That's why we have Mr. Jackson and Isaac on the show to help us understand better.
But the thing is, right on the day of the launching of the event, there were even cash contributions that were made. Beyond just donor commitment, there were cash contributions that were made. President and all the other people made cash contributions. But the whole tirade, from the CDC.
Who made that? Who gave the cash contribution?
When Stanton played the recording of the Minister of Zuka Jeans, when Stanton played the recording of Minister of Zuka Jeans, you were listening to what he said.
Yes, Zuka Wilson.
Yes, Zuka Wilson. You were listening to him. I will not speak for him. So whatever happened there, Zuka Jeans knows the story better than me. He explained that Stanton will play. But Stanton, please put up those talking points again for me.
There you go.
Them. Again, coming from the same way I started, the president painted the distressed state of the country, but he did not want to leave it like that. He wanted to give his people hope. He wanted to inspire hope about things he would do in the midst of distress. He pointed to drugs. Who in Liberia is not aware or directly or indirectly affected by the drug epidemic? His statement to take drug tests is not a solution. He's sending a message of uncompromising commitment across the country about his fight against drugs. That's how leaders behave. That's how leaders inspire people. That's how leaders show commitment through voice. That event was not an implementation strategy meeting. It was intended to deliver a speech on the state of affairs of the country. So the president was using words to inspire his people. He was using words to send a message of his commitment. That his statement about taking drugs was a symbolic expression of his commitment to fighting drugs in the country. Something that destroyed the fabric of our country that we are abandoned for 6 years. That's what he was doing. So taking drugs will not solve the problem, but taking drugs sends the message across. All DEA officers are now on the alert that there's a new sheriff in town. This new sheriff is committed to fighting drugs to the point where he's ready to take drug tests. First time unprecedented in the history of our country for a president to commit to taking drug tests as an expression of his commitment to fighting drugs. That's why he did that. Unprecedented. What the other thing on the list?
I beg you, before we move to the other thing, don't you think it would have been better? And then this goes to everyone. If the president was just going to just select all drugs, someone that say instead of creating all these different folks, because these people just coming into the ministry now, they got a long way to go. Health Minister Dr. Poto, if she confirmed. DEA, you talk about A.B. Kroma, if he confirmed. Justice Minister, you are talking about Councilor Cooper Cra, if he's confirmed. You can go ahead and name them, but why couldn't he just create all drugs?
Whatever the case is, I partly agree with the former minister. I partly agree with him. All these institutions have statutory responsibilities to do this job. The president has expressed his commitment. He has demonstrated it. He provided symbolic commitment by saying he would take the drug test. All the institutions he listed supposed to immediately take action as per their mandate. Just creating the new structure, the new committee Yeah, sometimes creating and send additional messages, but we don't need it a whole lot. The DA has a mandate to fight drugs. Ministry of Health has a mandate. Youth and Sport have a mandate for youth development. The president is saying he don't want drugs in his country. Take action. So I partly agree with the minister. We don't need additional committees. We only need to take the president's instruction. We only need to take the president's commitment and go back to our respective institutions as per the act creating them and begin to take action. So new committee, I don't know what information drove that, but where I sit and the information available to me, I don't see no need for new committee. That statement from the president, that statement declaring drugs a national emergency and promising to take drug test was sufficient for all the different institutions to begin into pari pursuit to move and address the drug issue. Establishment of national tourism. Brother Coffee, this unit has been under the ministry since it was established over 4 decades ago. What have we seen about it? But there are evidence where when these ministries, when these units are pulled apart and given some level of autonomy and freedom, there's a possibility where they can be effective. We've seen it with the Land Commission. We've seen it with different agencies. We've seen it with LRA and the Ministry of Finance. So this is an opportunity to create a separate entity that will supervise and monitor and provide regulatory oversight over the tourism sector. I'm not very optimistic about tourism resources in the short to medium term. I am a president of Liberia. I will not close down tourism, but I will focus and invest more in agriculture. Pay attention to where the poor people are and the sector that they can participate in more effectively. The skill set for working in tourism is far advanced than working in agriculture, where the poor people, over 60-65% of our people are working. I will invest more in agriculture. I will pay more attention to that than paying attention to tourism. I will not close tourism down, but I will prioritize agriculture over tourism.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. Your takeaway.
Okay. Look, one of the things I've tried to do as an elderly statesman is to give President Boycott a honeymoon, give him a leeway so he can make progress. But if his supporters are going to pretend like that Mr. Boycott was not vice president for 12 years, and many of the same people that he's appointing did not have prior experience in the 12 years of the alien-led government, this kind of dishonesty that was not handled properly by people within the CDC campaign. You were telling me that you were serious about drugs, but the most experienced person, the most experienced with quantifiable real experience in drug interdiction and in drug policy implementation happens to be Samuel Gay, who was a DEA officer, regional officer of the United States government in Lagos, Nigeria. And then you bring in, on the first day of the appointments, you bring in 4 appointees of Ellen, and you look, there's no way Mame and other people who support boycott that Liberia will not be business as usual unless there is a radical change in the content, the character, and the implementation of policy objectives. Because what you guys are doing, and I didn't want to be this way in my approach to arena your parade, because I want us to have some peaceful coexistence. But if you're making it to the people of Liberia, that you have all the answers for all of the questions, the historical questions since 1847, and you're making it seem like you're going to have a magic, you're going to wave a magic wand. What you're doing is you are doing this very thing about irrational expectations. That's what you're doing.
Are you having a problem with the appointment, Mr. Jackson? Are you having a problem? No, I'm not cutting you off. I just throw in a question. It's very important. You went back to the first 4 appointments, saying they were all from Madam Salih. Are you having a problem?
I said to you when I was talking that day, and when Mame was using insulting words like pedestrian argument, and I don't know where he learned the word pedestrian for and how you can use pedestrian on somebody like me, but I was telling him that the proof of the success of the Joseph Boycott government would not be in speeches. It will be in the what? The achievements of real objectives. And real objectives cannot be achieved without marrying competent people who have new and radical and unusual approaches to problems. And then you combine that with getting the resources. And you all should know that Liberia is a donor-driven country. Fiscal space is very limited. Fiscal space, or 90% of the expenditure, okay, revenues go to running the government, 90%. So you only have 10%. Where are you going to get new monies from to have a strong interdiction effort? What are you going to get money from to put in a strong rehabilitation effort? Where are you going to get money from for all of the health objectives that you have? Where are you going to get money from to create a new minister of local government? And who will be the new people that will be radically opposed to the way things were done in the 12 years of the Boyka administration? This is not a new precedent. This is a vice president who was vice president under a failed regime for 12 years. But they were able to bamboozle the public by making it seem that these are rescuers that are coming, okay, to make things happen.
Okay. I think Sam, let's give the guys a chance to respond to you. Hey, listen, this is what Spoon Talk is about. I told you guys we would not just be, and all respect to you, Sam. I'm not beating you on it. You and Isaac, though. Let me go to Dr. Richardson. You just heard what Sam said, Dr. Richardson. The issue is that new wine in old bottle. Dr. Richardson.
Yes. I think that Mr. Jackson is making a point. He wants to see actionable steps, not just words. We come from a history of, I think somebody said, where words have been thrown at Liberians. So if we can have some measurable, actionable steps, it's kind of what I'm agreeing with Mr. Jackson. But at the same time, I also want to recognize, like he said earlier, this was just a speech. The president has only been in power for a week. So I'm willing to give, some grace period to see how these words would turn into actions. I thought overall the speech was the delivery was good. It was short enough so that we could get some highlights. However, though, I wish that the speech would have went further when it spoke about some important issues, such as the drug issue. In my business, there's an interrelationship between drugs and mental health. We always want to know what is causing someone to use drugs. Are they medicating themselves? And then when you start to use drugs, there's also an effect that happens not only on the family, but the community and the society as a whole. So I believe that, yes, to highlight the issue of drugs, it's important to say, okay, I want to establish someone to study Kush or to manage Kush, but also highlight, we have a mental health bill on books. The implementation of that bill, or even to strengthen that bill, I think just having him familiar or speak briefly about that bill, because there is an interrelationship between mental health and drug issues. I slightly disagree with you. I believe that we can chew gum and walk at the same time when it comes to agriculture and ecotourism. Yes, I think the agriculture ministry should be separated, because historically we've seen that the tourism part of the Ministry of Agriculture and Information has not really worked up to its expectation. And I think we are mixing that information with politics, because the information piece comes with politics, serving in a way as the government propaganda agency in tourism. So I don't know how we can mix those two information together. But I believe that there's a low-hanging fruit that we can expand on when it comes to tourism, because it doesn't have to be 5-star hotels and training the best of people to welcome people. We have a lot of great spots in Liberia, like, Pata we want to hear, but Cape Mount, as Mr. Coffee mentioned, Buchanan, those areas that are low-hanging fruits when it comes to tourism, that we can manage well and use the staff that we have right now. Just a little bit of training will help them, in the same way that we'll train people to just utilize some agricultural structures, some agricultural skills. Education, I wish you would have, the past government talked about, education at a higher level. Maybe the only thing that specified was maybe YFE for maybe the middle school level or whatever. You talked about private free college education, but I think early elementary is the key now. If you study most countries, you see they emphasize preschool learning, pre-education, because that's the foundation for education. So I think emphasizing early elementary schools, how he's going to train teachers, looking at the structure of our schools is deplorable. Looking at how he's going to strengthen and build new modern day schools instead of those mud bricks with Colombo windows, which I think is not conducive for education at all. I thought the infrastructure building getting Japanese support, Japan support to build a bridge from Fatan to St. Paul Bridge was good. Also, I thought that was a good way to say, listen, I'm already reaching out to the international community, to donors, they're willing to help us. I wish that, like somebody said yesterday, that also money available from the Mana River Basin, the UN agency, that we could put a leverage on that support to build that road straight to Sierra Leone. Diagnostic region, he said, I had some questions about that. Where and how would the direct diagnostic region be? Is it going to be in the hospitals that are already established, or is it going to be where? Overall, I thought the speech was not bad at all. He couldn't put everything into it, but I think some actionable actionable behavior would be helpful.
Thank you very much, Dr. Richardson. I wanted to bring in Isaac, but it looked like Isaac, I know you got to go because CDC is responding. Let me give you a chance to wrap this thing up before you leave. CDC is responding. I don't know who they're responding to, but talk to us. Who you guys responding to, Isaac?
We are going to run a very responsible opposition now. This is the CDC today is not the CDC some 12 years ago. Now we are coming with government experience. We are coming with the knowledge on how to do things. So we are responding to what's supposed to be the State of the Nation address. To those things are just being.
Who responded? Who responded?
You got to know who. But let me make this clear.
Wait. Is that secret now?
I need to go.
Even the Republican will come and say such and such will be responding. No. I say, don't branch out. And I beg you, let the people understand. Those in radio, let it understand. I say, I beg you. Can you give him volume magic, please? We are not hearing him well.
The CDC will be responding to what's supposed to be a State of the Nation address.
And who responded? Who represented the CDC to give the response?
CDC got very capable men and women who
I didn't say the contrary, but who responded? Is that the chairman?
The chairman is very capable to respond.
So the chairman will be responding.
If that's what you hear from me, that's okay. But I want to close on this. CEO,
well, this guy.
There are things they say government is continuing with it. Let me just end on this. Government is continuing with it. And there are things that bring quick confusion in the country when they are not addressed very quickly. One of those things for now will be things that were done from the past government, but that also have effect on the current government. Say, for instance, the issue of the UL, the tuition policy stuff from the past government. Schools will be running in session. The students and the administrators, the teachers will be confused as to if the next government will take it up or not. We want to ask the government to come up very clearly so that the students and the administrators can understand exactly where they stand, if they will continue, if they will not continue. Now, the issue of Relayig is just around the corner. People need to pay. So they need to be clear on these things. Oh, no, we are not doing it no more. We'll provide jobs in the country. Everybody will be working so we get money to pay days. We'll not, let the people know. But I wanted to close on two things very quickly. I will really expect this government success to be based on telling the Liberian people the real truth, not just giving political speeches on things that they know are the real truth. See, if you see through this camera, I will send you this. This tells you the Japanese approved $20 million for road connectivity in Liberia. I will send you this. And this came from June 27, 2021. This was in relation to the Gabriel Tucker Road from the Freeport that the president mentioned today. Instead of making the people to think you are engaging international panel, which we know you will do, and we really trust you can succeed in it, let the people know that the past government did this and we'll tap on that. I will send you this. This does not mean I wrote it, allafrica.com. And then let's leave from this one now. And
well, what you did, Isaac, what you did, y'all say y'all collected the fund as you sharing the newspaper. What happened? Sorry.
I'm sorry?
Yes, you showed us a newspaper that says that you collected the fund, that your government was the one who initiated this in this process of collecting the fund. Then what happened? What y'all did?
Yes.
Because we're not seeing it. We didn't
That's
see
what
it.
I'm saying. I'm not one person who was so much fenced about taking credit on things. Once the government implements it, take the credit. Oh, we can talk that one. I'm not concerned about that. What I'm concerned is what was said to the people when read the speech. It was as if the government started a process that will engage these people to break. What I'm going to say, yes, you will do it. Fine. Let's continue with it. This is our country. All what I'm saying is, please do not get it to seem as if you are initiating the process when the process has since been initiated. But let me go on the trending issue so far from the speech concerning $40 million that was left in the consolidated account. And Mr. Barker, the president, excellency today said $20.5 million that was left.
Why can't you say President Barker? Why you keep on saying Mr. Barker?
I usually refer to people as Mr. Barker's Excellency, the President. I usually, for some reason, even myself, I tell myself. So I wanted to be very precise on this. President Weah spoke on the 21st.
You didn't say Mr. Weah, you said President Weah.
I see.
No, see,
why can't you say President Barker?
No, let me get out of the wrong, please.
You said President Barker. You said President Weah. Thank you.
In my mind, I don't want to put the blame on him because he read what was given him. Maybe the right information wasn't. Now, I want to say, CEO, the president, former president, President Weah spoke on the 21st of January and gave a figure that was at January 17 as per the numbers reading from the consolidated account. And the CDC, fortunately, will be asking the government now in power to publish the bank statement so that the people can clear order and know what figure was there. Now, let me assume I wasn't with them when they prepared it. The consolidated account comes from two different angles. One of it is in United States dollars, and the other figure is in Liberian dollars. When President Weah spoke, he gave the figure as a combined figure in both United States dollars and the Liberian dollars portion converted to US dollars as an addition. So if you were to come and say you have 25 million as at January 19, when the president spoke of his January 17, we will really hope that this government can make a single. This is public record. Give it out to the public. We do have it. We have all of the figures here. If the government cannot give it in like 2 hours, 48 hours, we will come and publish it. But I can tell you, the government's consolidated account in Liberia had a total of 40 million for $44,365.
So somebody just send that to you.
So why didn't they post it? Why President Weah didn't make sure that the public saw that? Why is it now that we're talking after?
President Weah did not know that anyone.
Why didn't we get backing for the 40 million from President Weah?
That's what I'm answering you now. President
No,
Weah
but we can get it from you. We should have gotten it from President Weah, since you're expecting it from President Boyka.
I'm not understanding what you're saying. I'm saying President Weah did not know that anybody would come and dispute the numbers. So the fact that the numbers are disputed, give us the figures. And we say, if you can't give us that as a public record, we will go ahead and do that. That should be a public record. And we know from the side of the fact, the actual evidence, that the figures, both combined, is $40 million. And you are asking me why didn't President Weah produce it? Well, President Weah did not know anyone who had disputed.
But he didn't, but Mr. Doe, he didn't have to know. If he's giving us information, he's leaving office. That's like you're holding Boyka and President Boyka accountable to making a public record. Why didn't President Weah make a public record also? While we're having an expectation of President Boyka,
I want to go to Alex on this one. It's very important to go to Alex on this one.
I'm not sure. I don't know. So what you are saying is everything the former president has said, he should release a statement. If he said
that's not what I'm saying. You're making an issue on this money.
I know you gotta go to your speech. Your party about to respond, and As always, it's good to have you folks. As will be joining us regularly moving forward because we need to have this balance. And want to say thank you very much, former Deputy Minister of Youth, Isaac Dole. Thank you for having you, my brother. All right. Let me bring you in, Alex, and then we can move around the black. On a very serious note, to solve all this problem, Alex, I believe your suggestion to me tonight will be immediately they should audit, right?
But the auditing, the anti-corruption strategy of the Joseph Boakai, President Joseph Boakai led government could be in different. We already have in different areas. We already have the anti-graft institution. We have the GSC. We have the IAA. We have the FIU. We have this institution, the PPCC, who have been doing their work. All right. There are a lot of audits that have been conducted already by the GSC, the IAA. The LACC is there too. They have done a lot of investigative report. The FIU they have done a lot of investigative report, and they've sent these things to what we call the competent authority, whether it's the LRA, whether it's the NSA, depending on the predicate offense, whether it's terrorism or corruption, they will send it to the institution involved. These things are there. So what needs to be done, and we also have the Public Account Committee at the legislature that hold hearings. So what we lacked in the past is the political will and then the political interference, as well as some issues with our judicial system, our legal system. So what we need now is a bold step. The same way Boakai said he was going to take the drug test, it should also announce that we will resume the PSC process. All these different audit reports that have been conducted will see the day of light, so that from there, prosecution and other things will happen. Now, far from that, we also need now to establish the investigative and the asset recovery team that will now pick up most of these different investigative reports that have been lying there to fast track them, as well as also helping to fast track audit reports that have been lying there. So this needs to be done, because auditing a government is like auditing the different functionalities, different functions of Ministry of, and I'm glad I heard that Mr. Boakai said, President Boakai said that it's not only the executive branch of government, it will be across the government. So that means they will be auditing the legislature as well as the judicial branches of government as well, which is key. Except that what I didn't hear is that the establishment of the asset recovery situation in the country. But let me, Mami, you one of the smart and analytical guy I see on the show. But let me make a point here. What I said was based on my experience in West Africa, in Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, Gambia, right, on the tourism issue. And Francine here is right. We can do both. Agriculture and tourism, they're all important for our economy, right? Tourism is key. Now, what I was trying to say, based on the experiences of other countries and the experience in Liberia, these countries package and sell. When the revenues start coming in, when the demand start coming in, then they form a separate institution. In Liberia, we are good at certain institutions, but we're not good at acting. I'm not against the establishment of the institution to remove it. But when we do that first, before acting, we got tourism potential that we're not tapping in, even with the existing institution that we have. It's like we make the law on gender violence. We don't do anything with the law. People don't go to jail. People don't go to court. Then we say, oh, there's a problem with the law we want. We have not, like Darrell Delon said, we haven't even tried the law, but we're talking about amending the law. So that's the direction I was coming from, that we should do something first because the potential is there. We're not doing it, but we want to establish first. Let's take action. When the money starts coming, then we can formulate, because that's the basis on which we'll be able to pay the salaries of that new commission and the cars and the different things, instead of putting additional burden on an already distressed budget. You saw that Mr. Barker said we collected so much revenue, right? But we've paid so much expenses and we have a shortfall of 80 million. Now we're going to add another institution to draw more money at this time. Let's act before. That's all I was trying to say.
All right, so let's bring in Al Hussein, Glendy, Prince Maxwell. Thank you for joining us. And then I want you guys to also think about the next conversation. It's the tenure position. A lot of argument coming up about the tenure position. Folks are saying, well, the president, with the exception of few agency entity out there, maybe 3 or 4, the president have right to just dissolve this whole tenure thing according to the Constitution. So I have spoken to all the legal experts, but we need to discuss this. Let's look at fisheries. Let's look at the road fund, LTA, and all the places where people just sit there forever and say, well, I'm on a tenure. So let's discuss it in the next round. But on this one, let's finish up with Glendy, Al Hussein, Prince Maxwell.
Stanton, I think I already spoke. If it was for those 4 things, I think I started the conversation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Al Hussein.
All right, yeah. The whole taking of drugs, I think that was a nice that would be a great symbolic gesture. One of the things that the past administration failed at was drugs. They failed miserably on drugs. They seem to have lost the battle on drugs. We saw $100 million case that the guys walk away. Our streets have been filled with drugs. You know, most of our young children are now on drugs. The coups have taken over. So the president making this a priority, we see that in his gesture. If his appointment of my good friend A.B. Kroma, someone that left a legacy at the National Police when it came to fighting crime. I think he was very strategic in that. I've spoken with A.B. In the last couple of days on some of his plans, and I saw a very elaborate plan that he has in place. I pray that he goes through the Senate and be able to do that work. And then when you look at that committee, I don't know what it was, committee or something like that, he set up, he had everybody, every institution that should be in the know. It's not, look, fighting drugs is not just one thing. Drugs, the enforcement, and fighting it as a crime, and also we need rehabilitation, we need awareness. And I think the fact that he's incorporating all these different agencies, I think speaks volume. And he said it during his campaign that this was close to his chest, and we're seeing it in his action. I keep hearing, let me just piggyback on it. It's unfortunate that we have to listen to advice from folks like Axel. For the last 6 years, they had an opportunity to advise former president. He keeps saying president. It's former president Weah. He's no more president, Mr. Doe. I'm sorry you're not here, and I'm sorry I was not on the phone at that time to respond. But he's former president Weah, and you guys did a terrible job when it comes to advising him. For you to say that, so look, every great plan starts with the speech and then go into something. This government better 2 weeks ago, and you're talking about want to see what action can you see in 2 days? If not even started, he's just giving you the blueprint. In order to build a house, you have to build the blueprint, and then you follow that blueprint. Wait 6 months from now and see if that doesn't happen, then we can have that conversation. But to be putting the cart before the horse, I think is just not fair to President Boyka, and I think people are just fishing, looking for things to say. But on tourism, look, I've traveled. I'm an avid travel a lover of traveling, especially around Africa. During the COVID, I made it my duty to go around the South region. I was in Senegal, went to Ghana, Guinea, and most of the other countries. Look, you go to the Gorée Island in Senegal or whatever they have in Ghana. These people are making millions. I think there was a brilliant idea. Look, tourism, Liberia should be the Black Mecca. This is the first country in Africa. Our country alone, the history is something that people should be flooding to our show to something. We need to correct most of those sites now and start something. So the fact that it has now worked under the Ministry of Information, I think it's a very brilliant idea. I think that thing should go beyond that and just become autonomous. Because I think when we focus on tourism, tourism can pay for itself. Every African American in this country that are flooding to Ghana now should be coming here to Liberia because we have a very close relationship to the U.S. than any other country in Africa for that matter. So people should be coming to our show to see what we share in common, the names of the different cities, the architecture that was brought back home by some of our founding fathers and things like that. So I think we need to do that. And I think we can still do that and take care of agriculture. When the president talked about agriculture, look, this is 2024. We shouldn't be importing rice. Why? Why should we be importing our staple food? Go to Ivory Coast, they eat yam and acheke, and they produce most of those things. They eat pretty much half of what they eat, they grow it there. I think we can do it. Our soils are rich. It has been tested. I think we have everything that we need. We just need a president with the will, and we are seeing it in President Boyka.